I feel awful.
God, you're not ill again, are you?
Oh.
Come on, you landlubber. Hoist that mainsail.
Oh, make it stop, Jude.
For goodness sake, splice the main brace or I'll keel-haul you. Oh, come on. You must have some kind of sea legs. I know. Settle down and listen to this.
Look at the horizon, a sailor commanded one day after witnessing her dry heaves. Get up the bow and keep your eyes on where we headed. Pay no mind to the humping and bumping, the rocking and rolling. Watch what don't move. Then your stomach will settle. My name is Tracy Chavalier, and my book is The Last Runaway.
Oh, hey, that's actually really helping, Judy. I think I'm nearly ready to cast off.
Fantastic. The winds seem set fair and the serpentine awaits. Get peddling. Tracy Chavalier knows a thing or two about writing a bestseller. Her work, Girl with a Pearl Earring, not only a page-turner, but also a Hollywood hit.
This time around, with The Last Runaway, it's over the pond to Ohio.
Instead, she held out a hand towards Honor. A small, ambiguous gesture, it still had the power to untwist Honor's stomach, for it said, "I am running away. Help me."
I wasn't sure about this book at first, actually. I found, for example, some of the arcane language that the central character uses when instead of saying you, she says thee all the way through. Initially, I thought I was going to be irritated by it, but I was being ridiculous because actually it's part and parcel of the way Tracy Chavalier creates a sense of time. You really are aware that you're hundreds of years in the past. And at a point where people treated each other with much more formality. And of course, the central character is a Quaker, she's a Quaker girl. And her relationships with the world around her, with her God, with her family back in England that she writes to, is so much more punctilious and formal and well-mannered than it would be today. There was far less casualness in the way that people regarded each other and treated each other. So there's that side to it, which I quickly came to sort of understand and love. But there's also wonderful descriptive passages about what it was like to be in that wave, that first wave of pioneers rolling westward across America, and then how they clashed with this tide of runaway slaves coming up from the south, heading for the border in Canada and freedom.
It's set in 1850.
Yeah.
And she knows that if she helps, and she's a Quaker, as you say, she has a very, very strong conscience, and she knows that if she helps these runaway slaves, she's not only breaking the law of the country, she's also breaking the spirit of the law in the new country which she has adopted.
And also, being a Quaker, Quakers are not supposed to lie under any circumstances. Lies are unforgivable. They're a sin in the face of God. So when she does, as she does from the start, when she does help these runaway slaves and is then challenged by the squads, and one man in particular, who are searching for them to take them back to the plantations, she has to lie. She has to say that she hasn't helped them and she doesn't know where they are, she doesn't know where they're hiding. And this rips her apart because her faith is very, very important to her. And again, it's very hard to think in the Christian world today of a person being rent like that by what we would regard as perfectly acceptable lies. But to the Quakers, and particularly then, and it's true to some extent, to a lesser extent today, lying was a major sin. So she's put in this terrible position from the word go. And also the descriptive passages about the countryside, the rawness of the landscape.
And the difference between Ohio and England.
The weather, the snow in the winter 10 times as deep, the temperature 10 times colder, the summer's broiling hot, and the animals, the creatures, the trees, the shrubs that she's never seen before that are unique to the North American landscape. It's a really good read. It's rich, it's personal,
a lovely book,
and it's a lovely book, and it ends beautifully. I love the ending of this book. So, do you like the sound of this book? I hope so, because it's great. Anyway, make sure that you buy your copy at WHSmith, as there are some great offers both online and in store.
And if you turn to the back of the book, you'll find lots of added content, like these questions we put to Tracy.
Get more great tips from our book club authors on our Facebook page.
This is one heck of a story, Tracy. We absolutely loved it. What was your inspiration?
I'm American, as you can hear from my accent, and I went to a college called Oberlin College in Ohio, and I was there a few years ago at the same time as Toni Morrison, and the Nobel laureate writer, and she was unveiling a monument to commemorate the town and college as an important place for African American history. because Oberlin was had safe houses where runaway slaves could hide until they got to Canada. It was part of the Underground Railroad, and when she unveiled it, I started thinking about the Underground Railroad, and a couple days later I was at a Quaker meeting and sitting in silence, and Quakers worked a lot on the Underground Railroad. I started thinking about that, and it all just kind of came together in one moment.
Do you think your average English girl of today could hack it in 1850s Ohio?
No. No. It was really tough living. Is that kind of pioneer living that we all have heard about. But the reality is that it's not glamorous. It was very harsh weather, really hot summers, really cold winters, tornadoes, thunderstorms, hail that ruined crops, lots of fever, lots of sickness. Lots of people died, children died all the time. There were wild animals, there were snakes that could bite you and kill you. I mean, everything seemed out to get you. And so it was, my main character gets kind of tossed into this very difficult life after a very rather sedate life in Dorset.
The period detail in this book is vivid and seems absolutely authentic. How did you research it?
I do a lot of reading and a lot of looking at things in museums and stuff, but my favorite part of the research is really to be on the ground. Going around, I go to the place, to Ohio in this case, and spent a lot of time taking pictures and getting out wildflower ID books and figuring out what I was looking at and picking flowers and walking through woods and just imagining my characters being there and living there and being in situ. And, you know, Ohio now, it's 21st century, it's very, very developed, but there are these little tiny pockets of virginal woods you can still find to walk through, and farms like the Amish farms, they are all run along 19th century lines. They don't have any electricity, and they use all horses, and they have massive families, and you can always tell an Amish farm because they have the laundry out. They don't have a dryer, a tumble dryer, so it's all very carefully hung out in order from small to large, from like tiny baby clothes all the way up to the sheets. And it's all that, just I soak it in, and then I come back home and write. I did go to one specific Amish farm, and my main character isn't Amish, she's Quaker. It's a little different, but the Amish are the only people now in 21st century who don't in the Western world who don't use electricity, and so I needed to go to a farm that would have all the animals in the barn the way it used to be, and a friend of a friend introduced me to this family, and I went through 2 times while I was researching. And then recently, when the book was published, I went back and gave the farmer's wife a copy of the book, and it was really great to see them. I just feel like they live apart from us, but I was really privileged to be able to get a glimpse inside their lives.
I love the way that you write about Honor trying to stop herself helping these runaway slaves, but obviously she just can't hold back. Is her compassion inspired by Quaker morality, do you think, or was it more from something that kind of lies innately within her?
I think that there's something inside all of us that makes us want to help people. I think in general people are good, and there are very few. It's all the bad people give us the bad name, but most people, given a choice, do want to help people. And for Honor, the difficulty is that she's been brought up in England where people are opposed to slavery in principle, but it's very different when putting your principles into practice when you move to another country, a country that was, the economics are run on slavery, they were, and she has to figure out how to stand up for what she believes in without offending her family, without breaking the law, or if she breaks the law, without getting caught. So it's quite a strong decision she has to make. This is a passage where the main character, Honor Bright, has been ill, and she's in bed in a farm, and she sees something outside, and she's all alone. She sat up carefully so that she would not rustle the sheets. The idea of being alone on this farm, surrounded by woods, with someone crouching by the well, made her stomach twist with fear. Honor had hoped the sun's glare would blind the man so that he would not see her, but as she peered at the dark form, she sensed a gaze back. He remained very still, so still that the chicken pecked close by. Honor did not move either. Beneath her nightgown, she could feel sweat trickle down her back. As she watched, the darkness unfolded itself, stood and took the shape of a young black woman, barefoot in a yellow dress. Around her hair she wore a strip of cloth torn from the hem. The chicken ran off, but she did not try to run as well. Instead, she held out a hand towards Honor. A small, ambiguous gesture, it still had the power to untwist Honor's stomach, for it said, "I am running away. Help me." She and the woman were now linked by that gesture. She had grown up with the understanding that slavery was wrong and must be opposed, but that had been all thoughts and words. Now she must actually do something, though she did not yet know what. I write to get something out of me, to communicate with other people, and because I think humans are hardwired to tell stories, and that's what I like to do. I have set hours. It's a job, really great job, but a job. So once my son goes off to school, I go to my desk, I check my email, and then usually I leave my desk and the computer behind, and I come downstairs and sit at the table and write. So first I read what I wrote the day before to get me started. Then I write, and I try to write 1,000 words, which is about 3 or 4 pages a day. And I just keep going until I'm done with that. And then I type it into the computer. So I write longhand into notebook because I feel the pen and ink is more organic. It's more me. Whereas a screen is a bit more distancing. So I write it, and then at the end of the day, I put it in the computer, changing it as I go. And hopefully, if I do it right, I still have a tiny bit left in the tank, and which I save for the next morning. So I will then be able to get right into writing. I grew up in Washington, D.C. My dad was a photographer for the Washington Post, and I was very bookish as a child. I read a lot, and then I talked about writing a lot, but I didn't do that much. So in high school, I knew I wanted to go to college, be an English major, and I thought maybe I'll end up in publishing rather than writing per se. So that's what I did. I majored in English, and then my third year at university, I came over to London to do a semester here, study. And I loved it so much that when I graduated, I thought I want to go back to London just for 6 months for fun. And then I'll go back to the States and get serious. And I just never got serious. I stayed. And then I met a guy, and my husband's English. So I ended up staying. And I got a job in publishing first. I was an editorial assistant, and then I was a reference book editor for books about writers and artists for libraries. And I did that for a while, and then I decided, I guess I got tired of editing other people's words. I wanted to write my own. And by that time, I was writing short stories on the side at night and at weekends. And I applied for the MA in creative writing at the University of East Anglia. And I got in, and my tutors were Malcolm Bradbury and Rose Tremaine. So I did that. Had the idea for my first novel, The Virgin Blue, and wrote that beginning during the MA year, and then after that, and eventually managed to get an agent and got it published in 1997. And then I had the idea for Girl with a Pearl Earring and took it from there. And that's I had been editing part-time on the side, but I started writing full-time once I had the idea for Girl with a Pearl Earring. I had no idea it was going to do what it did, though. I didn't think it was going to be that successful. So that was a real surprise, but a wonderful one, too. The best piece of advice I've had on writing is one that is applied in general to a lot of things, and it's less is more. Usually, you can cut something out. I can write a sentence and then take out half the words, and I've learned that by looking at it, thinking how much can I get rid of and still maintain the structure and the feeling. It really helps. Less really is more. Words have more impact when you use fewer of them. And so that's been very influential on my writing. No, I'm very good at cutting my own work. I was an editor before I was a writer, and I do understand the power of editing and how important it is. And I also recognize that I need somebody else to do it as well. I can edit myself up to a point, but then when I reach a point where I can't fix it anymore, but it's still broken, I need somebody else to look at it and tell me what's wrong. And I'm not a prima donna with the editors. I definitely welcome feedback. My favorite character in The Last Runaway is Belle Mills, who is a milliner who the main character, Honor Bright, stays with for a bit. And she's She's from the South but lives in the North. She helps runaway slaves. She hides them. She's not what you would think, like a milliner or somebody who makes hats. You think they're going to be really frilly and feminine. And actually, she's kind of like a scarecrow, and she has jaundice, and she never wears hats herself. She just makes them, and she's tough. She drinks a lot of whiskey, and she shoots her shotgun a lot. And she teaches honor, in a way, how to be American and how to accept change. And I just loved writing her.
Tell us what titles you've enjoyed on the Richard and Judy Book Club.
This is the Autumn Book Club collection, where you can enjoy a whole library of downloads from seasons past on iTunes.
Find more great books on our website. That's whsmith.co.uk/Richard and Judy. And listen again via iTunes.
And because they both come from dysfunctional families, they're outsiders, both groups are outsiders. So the two sets of twins become this very close group very, very quickly. They bond incredibly quickly because it's also intense. They're in the forest, they're outsiders, they have the connection that they're identical twins.
Do you know what, Judy? I actually think I could get used to life on the ocean wave.
I knew you'd enjoy it. You just have to trust me. Now, just pedal a little bit quicker.
All right. So tranquil, so calm, so pleasant. Judy?
Woohoo! Yee-haw! Come on, let's ride those rapids, Richard. Yippee!